Hi, and welcome to Newsmakers for inside analysis and behind-the-scenes commentary from Santa Barbara's top journalists and political leaders about the most important news events in our community. I'm Jerry Roberts. Tonight we look behind these headlines. A sudden spate of controversy surfaces at the Santa Barbara Unified School District. The Board of Soups faces a big jobs versus the environment decision as ExxonMobil seeks a new permit for offshore operations. A surprise take-it-or-leave-it offer from owners of the empty Sears building scrambles city calculations on new rental housing. And a new attempt to reboot policy towards the homeless comes amid a chorus of complaints about the parks. Our guest tonight, Laura Capps, Vice President of the Santa Barbara School Board. Tyler Hayden, Senior Editor of The Independent. Josh Molina, Politics and Policy Reporter for Newshawk. And Nick Welsh, Executive Editor of The Independent. Thank you all for coming. So Laura, there's been a lot of news out of the school district lately, including a big reversal on the GATE program at Washington Elementary. But I want to start with your effort for a new sustainability program in the schools. Explain what it is, and then I want to ask you why the board is split over approving the first step.
Well, first of all, I love that you smell a scandal, so I get to go first for the first time. For the first time ever, we're talking about environment in schools at the top of the show. Yes.
Thanks for coming, Laura. Sustainability, remember?
Yes.
Focus.
Yes. So we can get to the good stuff. So sustainability, I'm really excited. The board passed the first step in a position to create for the district-wide, somebody who's solely devoted to sustainability and energy efficiency, because it's what a lot of districts are doing to save money, to help educate our kids, and to make our schools more sustainable.
And how much does it cost?
We don't know yet. They're coming back to us with a job description. But everywhere, and I've researched it, I did a lot of homework on this one because it came through to me as an idea from this committee of teachers and parents and students. They wanted this, and so I looked into it and talked to people at Oxnard and Monterey, and their position, I think, costs roughly $90,000, but they've saved over $1 million.
Really?
Because they go out and find.
What does the sustainability officer do all day?
It depends on the position, but I mean, for example, in our district, I looked at our water bills. They vary widely. Like some schools, it's $13,000 a month one month, and then the next month it's $4,000, and across town it's $800 a month. I mean, so there's ways if there's somebody who's just devoted to energy efficiency and water conservation and sustainability, they can do an audit and sort of figure out why these discrepancies and how can we save money, and then you can use that money to educate our kids.
So it sounds like pretty much of a mom and apple pie thing in Santa Barbara, but yet
yes,
the vote on the school
board.
board.
Win-win-win is what I see.
Yes.
It's a win-win-win boondoggle, Jerry. Go ahead.
But that vote was 3-2. There's never a 3-2 vote at the school board. Occasionally there's a 4-1 vote, like when you take the correct position on Ed Barron's. But a 3-2 vote is astonishing. Why did Wendy Sims Moten and Rose Munoz vote against it?
Well, what's important is that it passed, and I was surprised. I mean, Wendy said that she had questions about the timing. Rose didn't speak, so I'm not sure, but
shocking.
But what's important is they're now. I mean, it's now the board has acted, and the staff have to come back to us with a proposal.
Well, how about the superintendent? Did he try to torpedo this behind the scenes?
Oh, I'm not sure, because I did meet with the facilities director, Steve Izzolini, before bringing it forward, and he seemed excited about the position and didn't express any concerns about timing or anything or impact on the staff.
All right. Okay. So what happened with the GATE program at Washington Elementary? The bureaucrats, the educrats, tried to torpedo that, and the parents righteously stood up and got it saved.
And the board stepped in. I asked for it to come before the board, and I'm glad we did, because the board got to hear the parents' concerns, and it wasn't handled properly, and so they walked it back, and hopefully it will be now.
I tell you, I covered that meeting. It was.
We're talking about the GATE now.
The GATE meeting, and I've covered I don't know how many meetings since '99, but I've never seen a staff member who's totally hung out to dry like that meeting. He presented it, he was making a case for it, but he got no support from any other staff member, and the parents went up there and did their thing. And even though Laura and the other members of the board disagreed with him, they were still respectful of him and said, good try, and it's just not the way we want to do it. We need to be open with it. So the board ended up actually defending him more than anyone else. But I was just sort of curious.
But shot down his idea.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was obviously the right thing to do. There was so much outrage, and even if the long-term goal is to go in that direction, in that moment, that was not the right time because people weren't ready for it. But do you have any thoughts on why staff or anyone at that table didn't speak up for him or bite the bullet and say, hey, this is really my proposal? Why didn't the superintendent do more? I mean, it was kind of a mystery to me.
Yeah, it was awkward. I think you called it awkward in your reporting of it. It was awkward, and we don't want to gang up on him, but we're talking about Dr. Raul Ramirez. But the board,
Whose idea we shot down, yes.
but the board wasn't happy, and we had some concerns, and so it was appropriate. It was also sort of interesting because it wasn't really coming to us for an action, so we really just had to weigh in and express our displeasure with this course of action, and he walked it back. But I do think the superintendent, I think it would have been helpful for the public if he had spoken at that meeting.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know about the proposal, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How much was this sprung on the parents in advance? How much of the issue was the parents hadn't been given due notice, and how much of it was?
Right, that was my big concern. I mean, I have questions about GATE, and I'm interested in how we can support
Gifted and talented education.
I think that we should need to look at sort of, is this the best model? We have this sort of hybrid model of a magnet
Well, you
school.
said we should have more.
And I think we should have more opportunities for kids who are tested into this program to stay at their schools, and maybe a magnet is the right thing. I don't know. I want to look at data and research. I'm sure there's plenty out there. But to your question, but the problem is that all of these kids got invited to go to the magnet school, and then they reversed the decision. So they'd already signed contracts, and for me that was really substantial. Like, you can't sort of do that. You can't have families make decisions, and so
Right.
once that had happened, so it was sprung on a lot of people. It was sprung on the board. It was sprung on parents.
But didn't they already got the acceptance letters
Exactly.
for the kids for next fall?
And they signed a contract saying that they were going to Washington.
Yeah, and
And then
people
this-
made decisions about
Right.
jobs and real
Right.
estate and other
Right.
things like that. It's outrageous.
Right.
All right, real quickly, two things. The simmering scandal at the Mad Academy. Can you just tell us
I
everything
love it. We're
about
like
that?
Mad Academy.
Yes.
As you know, I cannot.
Why is that?
Because I've been advised by our legal counsel that it's a personnel matter, and I'm not able
All
to
right.
give comment.
So the director of the Mad Academy is suspended, but now let back on, and parents are very upset about that. And then the last question, there's going to be 3 seats on the school board up next year, 2020, for the 3 members who were never elected. Are you going to run for re-election?
I don't know.
Well, nice aggressive follow, Nick. Thanks a lot on that. Way to jump in. Tyler.
I don't know. School board election 2020.
What do I have, like 16 months to
I'm a big
file?
man. Somehow or another, it just didn't pop up on my Rolodex this morning.
All right, Tyler. Thank you for putting up with that. I do it, but it's okay. All right, so the big public meeting at the Soups this week about ExxonMobil's bid to get a new permit.
Are you ready? We need to interrupt
Yeah,
and
we
start
need
singing, right? When the people rise.
So you've
I got the
actually
banner.
Got it?
are the only person, I believe, who has talked to some of the workers who are being affected by this decision. But how does it break down before the Soups?
Well, it's, I got to correct you, it wasn't before the soups. This is like really early on in the.
Oh, the
in
Soups get to make the decision.
Yeah, ultimately, but it's kind of an interesting point to all this. I mean, it was an absolutely packed hearing for it was a scoping hearing essentially. It was basically a chance for the public to weigh in on a draft environmental impact report. I know. But that shows how important this project is to a lot of people. It's like a very kind
so
of
many-
preliminary, semi-wonky step in the process, like generates this much attention and emotion. So it was the first chance for the Exxon representatives, employees, lobbyists, what have you, to basically say that the county staff's report that says, we could do this trucking this way. This is what the impacts would be. They were actually pretty in favor of it. They, thought that everything sounded reasonable and good. And then on the other side, you had the environmentalists who were saying this is ridiculous. At a time when we should be weaning ourselves off oil, we're talking about restarting the platforms and trucking.
So they've been shut down since the plane.
So all 3 Exxon platforms have been shut down since the Refugio oil spill, and that was 4 years ago. And they've been in kind of perpetual standby mode since then. They have like a few guys, skeleton crews on there doing sort of general maintenance, but they're not producing. They're not pulling up oil and sending it north. So this permit would allow Exxon to dispatch 70 trucks, working 24 hours a day, 70 days a week, to pick up the oil that would come from the platforms that would go to the Las Flores facility, and then while the pipeline is being replaced, truck it instead to refineries.
That sounds safe. No? I guess.
Yeah, just trucks full of oil on busy highways.
But
Great plan.
the soups also get a lot of pressure on this because these are good jobs. How many jobs?
There's a few hundred good-paying jobs that were lost after the spill. Not completely lost, well, some rather. Some people were laid off. Others have been transferred to other facilities, other Exxon facilities. So they may live here in Santa Barbara or Ventura, but commute either to the Gulf of Mexico. Do a month on, a month off. I talked to one guy who lives down in Ventura. He flies to Central Africa and does month-long what are called hitches there. So it was majorly disruptive to a lot of
Are these
families.
union jobs?
Yeah.
So Das and Greg and Joan are squeezed between the unions and the enviros.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. Once it actually kind of moves to their level on the planning commission level.
Did you find Andy Caldwell's testimony, Josh, at this hearing to be remarkably aligned with Nick's rantings?
Well, I usually save my independent reading for later in the week, so I haven't actually read Nick's column yet. And I couldn't see Andy Caldwell because
There were
Tyler
so
and
many
I
people.
had a row of people blocking us, so I was
But
too busy fidgeting with my computer.
how do you break down the politics, though?
Well, Andy Caldwell's a veteran, and he's very articulate and well-spoken, and he speaks well for his constituency, and he's a smart guy, so obviously he makes a lot of sense on these issues. I mean, he drives home that point of it's better to get it here than get it somewhere, from far away, from foreign oil sources, and we all use it, we all depend on it. Let's be realistic. These are real people. You guys say you care about working class people. Well, there's a room full of them, and you don't want them to have jobs. So, I mean, he hits those issues really well. Of course, the environmentalists want to look toward other sources, solar energy, wind energy, and they're equally smart on the issue. I mean, obviously.
Realistic.
It'll take a while. I mean, it's an interesting argument. Andy makes it pretty much every time. The counter is, if we build it or we don't build it here, or if we allow oil here, it has no effect on how much oil is produced in faraway lands with bad environmental track records and despots and totalitarians running the show.
Like
Oil is an international market. Yeah, it's an international market, and what we do or don't do here isn't going to really make a hill of beans in terms of global demand.
Do you accept that argument?
I think that's a depressing way to live, to think like that, actually.
Why?
Oh,
It's
it
globalism,
doesn't matter
isn't
what
it?
we do here, so let's just keep doing the bad thing that
No,
we
it's
do.
actually
All the scientists tell us it's not the right
it's
way.
actually it's the other way in this particular case. And the environmentalists are arguing that oil is still going to be produced in Nigeria at the
Right.
same quantities,
Right.
whether Santa Barbara allows Exxon to go forward or it doesn't. So they're saying Andy's argument that if we do it here, we'll do it better, it's going to make much difference
Oh, I see.
environmentally.
I see.
Now, what's the next step?
There's a public comment open till the end of the month, and then it'll keep moving up the pipeline, so to speak.
How many years is this going to take?
Well, it's supposed to come to the supervisors in the fall, so that's pretty quick. I mean, but this has been, this was submitted, I think, a year and a half ago, this permit proposal. So it's been working its way through.
But this is a scoping hearing, and it has, and so there wasn't anybody from the
No, so
planning
s-
commission talking.
There wasn't anybody from the county talking. It was a 5-minute staff presentation in the beginning, just running through the basics, bullet points of what we're talking about, and then it was them sitting and listening for 2.5, 3 hours from all anybody you could think
And
of.
basically, the preferred
uh,
alternative is they can't have these trucks going if it's going to rain more than half an inch. There's 50% chance of raining more than half an inch during a 24-hour period, so they don't have to.
But ultimately, this is going to go to the soups, right?
It is.
And when it goes to the soups, where will the 3 liberal Democrats vote? With the environmentalists or with the jobs?
This one, I'm not sure. I would bet this one they're going to go with
Or
the.
meet.
No, I mean, this one's a wobbler. I mean, I think the ERG and the onshore oil, I think they're going to vote against those. This one, I'm not so sure.
Josh, where do the 3 libs vote? With the jobs or with the environment?
I don't know. I mean, I probably
With the environment would be the safe bet, but
What do you think?
probably they're going to figure out a way to make
Trucks,
it
I don't know
work.
why.
Yeah?
I don't know why. I mean, it depends on, Linda Kropp from the Environmental Defense Center brought up some of the technical stuff about, challenging this on CEQA grounds and, they didn't use the right baseline. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. But if they iron all those out, they have convincing arguments, Exxon does. I think the most was that when the spill happened, they were trucking that entire time up to these refineries, and no one really noticed or cared, and there were no incidents, and there were just as many trucks on the road at the time. So they're kind of using that as like the litmus test of how this can work. That's, that could be a faulty argument, but it's interesting.
Where are they going to vote? Where are their libs going to vote?
I don't know either. Sorry.
What do you say?
What do you think we're paying you? They're going to vote with the enviros.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right. Josh, Sears, how do the owners of the Sears building and the offer they made to the city about rental housing compare to the Opera Brigadoon?
It's a love story. We don't have time to go into it right now.
But that's what their lawyer got up there, and that's all he talked about, right?
5 of the 10 minutes.
Basically, the gates of heaven have opened up to the city of Santa Barbara. They have an opportunity to build or allow a developer to build 550 homes.
And they've started one already. Demolition
Don't you know
going on there in the
first
former
rule of
men's.
TV?
What?
Show must go on.
No, go.
Sell it. Okay. Hey, Santa Barbara, we'll build 550 homes. This would be humongous for Santa Barbara.
Huge.
In terms of them meeting their state mandates. And of course, they would love, for years, they've wanted housing at that site, but they never could do it because Sears had this long-term lease. And then Sears decided, we're not going to renew. Obviously, the company, corporate, struggling. So they said, we're not renewing. So now the owners saying, well, what can we do? Now we can actually do something. So they want to build housing. It's zoned for housing.
550 units in the former Sears
So there's some
store.
weird maps. La Cumbre
Yeah.
Plaza is not all owned by one person. We're talking Sears, the upper lot, and then a strip of the bottom lot where they would do that. The city of Santa Barbara
You
really.
got your tires checked? That-
Yeah.
You seem like a Costco guy. You never went to Sears.
No, I went to Sears a lot. I got Sears tires.
They treat your BMW, or what do you have? You bring it down from the hills
Okay,
above
enough-
Santa Barbara?
With his airplane.
Or do you have somebody take the car down there for you?
You know, Josh, let me tell you something about capitalism. It's the best goddamn system. All right, so what happens with the housing?
So Santa Barbara also, the city would like to come up with an overall specific plan for the area. So we're talking about the La Cumbre Plaza, which is someone owns the Macy's property, somebody owns the strip in the middle. It's 3 different
Oh,
owners.
those are all different owners.
Yeah, so they would like to bring everyone together and come up with this specific plan. For
They,
what
the
it would-
city.
The city would. So they're caught in the middle. And the Brigadoon moment was, hey, we don't care about your specific plan issue. We need agreement to build these 550 units. Otherwise, we're going to lease the Sears building out to commercial tenants or somebody else.
Because they want some income.
Yeah, but the only way they can build 550 is through the AUD ordinance, the city's high density has some other long name, but I call it high density ordinance. But that's set to expire once they reach 251. They're at about 250. They're at about 151. There's 700 in the pipeline. They're never going to make it in time. So they're saying you need to extend the AUD, or you need to come up with some specific thing for us. So it's this huge clash. Do we jump? Do we get the 550 housing units, or do we run the risk of not getting them, do the specific plan, and these people go rent it out to, I don't
what'd
know.
they
some
Who would
other-
they rent it out to, though? I mean, it's like,
He
who would
said
actually-
one tenant or multiple commercial. I mean,
Pop-up stores, you know?
Yeah, right.
Pop-up
right.
calendar stores.
What did they decide to do? I couldn't understand.
What they did is they voted to have a conversation. So really what they did,
God, none of that.
no, so what the council did, they had two big housing votes yesterday. One was for the commuter lot by Carrillo and Castillo Streets, which the housing authority wants to take over and build 58 units or some number. And the neighbors are concerned about loss of parking and other things. And then up at Sears. And in both instances, what the vote was, do we have a conversation? Do we allow the conversation to go forward? In both cases, the vote was yes. And really, I mean, this was sprung on the, I talked to a couple of council members, they said, yeah, we had an idea a couple of weeks ago, something was coming, this was the first time we heard the details. This is a massive project. It's incredibly complicated.
So they're trying to do both and, basically.
So what they're doing is we like chocolate, we like vanilla, we're going to see if we can get both.
Why did Kristen Sneddon vote against it? She was the only one who voted against it.
well, she feels that, okay, if we let the Sears property owners, the multi-generation family owned of the property, do their thing and build these units, it really hamstrings what you can do with the rest of La Cumbre Plaza. And the whole specific plan then will be adjusted around the housing. And she would rather see a holistic view that says, let's look from the beginning, what kind of development do we want on these sites? The Macy's building, that's not changing. They have a lease till 2078 unless they...
So that's Macy's got 9 years, and then the rest of it, so it has 78 years.
Okay, so...
78 years.
Well, yeah, so some of, I don't know
Is
exactly how much
anybody
of
ever
it.
going to go into that Tiffany store in the next 78 years, do you think? Be the first customers ever?
I only go into the game store at Christmas time
Yeah, I know.
to supplement
I
Santa.
like the pop-up
We keep
calendar
losing
stuff.
toy stores out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Okay, that's a good point.
So she would rather look at it as a whole, and she begged the guy and said, come on, work with us. You could still get what you want, but slow it down.
But it's Brigadoon.
It's Brigadoon, and
It was
gonna make it work.
I have to say, that was the longest Shaggy Dog story. The guy had 10 minutes to make his pitch. 5 minutes went in
the
describing the
Brigadoon.
intricacies of Brigadoon. Yeah. I mean,
I was on Wikipedia. I'm like, what the hell is, oh, I remember that.
And I have
That's
to
right.
say, following the plot twist, I got whiplash, you know?
Okay. All right, speaking of housing and homeless, so the new point-in-time study says there's fewer homeless people, but there seems to be more concern, and the city's got some new innovative stuff that you just love that you've been writing about Cottage Hospital and so on.
How
So-
great Cottage Hospital is.
Yeah,
and
how
they're
great.
finally
Yeah,
stepping
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah, more hagiographic,
Yeah.
whatever that word is. How do you say that?
Hagiography, yeah.
No, apologia.
Apologia.
I don't know.
Anyway, what's going on with the homeless?
Okay, so what's
It's
going
true.
on with the homeless is that objectively, to the extent anybody has any real numbers, which is questionable, the numbers in the city of Santa Barbara appear to be going down. That's the good news. The bad news is the number of unsheltered homeless people, the ones that don't sleep in the car and aren't in shelters, is going up. And so the number of homeless people that you experience on the streets is going up, the subjective reality is going up, and certainly the city parks department is very concerned that their staff is being subjected to all kinds of harassment by homeless people, and that parks are not being used by families.
Health and safety.
Health and safety issues. Parks are not being used by families that would otherwise use it. Rental operations that the city runs are not being used to the extent that they think it would be if the homeless weren't an issue. So what we had sort of, I think it was a bit of a Hail Mary pass, born of exhaustion and desperation by City Attorney Ariel Calan was, let's talk about an injunction.
Yeah, where did that come from?
And-
I mean, was that just full-blown from Ariel's head?
I think Ariel, the way Ariel was thinking, I think he was moved by this new report by the Parks Department, and it was an intense report. And I think he took it to heart, and what can we do to deal with problem behavior? And so he was asked pointedly, are you talking about doing a injunction against homeless people? He goes, I don't care about their dwelling status, or I'm interested in their behavior. Now that's a legal argument that he has to make. As a practical matter, it's not practical at all.
But he's gonna come up with it.
I don't think he's going to. I think it was something he put on the menu. He heard from 3 council members. Megan Hartman was the first at the gate. I find this constitutionally questionable.
She spends too much time reading Obama speeches.
Oh,
I
you
swear.
This is such a grumpy.
Oh, how quickly we
Oh,
turn
my
on the
God.
Harvard graduate.
Honestly. Well, once she sold out in the PLA, it was all over for
and
me.
really, I mean, the city did go down this route with the gang injunction
Yeah.
before. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just getting it to court where Judge Colleen Stern said, get on out of here. If they use half that money just to go around to the parks and say, hey, dudes, knock it off, you get a lot more done.
Did you notice we got almost through the show without saying PLA, but Jerry got it in.
I know, Jerry got to get it in.
Right under the wire.
We're going to have a special series
This is
over
like
the
Jerry's
summer.
Tourette syndrome.
So, Josh, do you share Nick's unbridled enthusiasm about the good works of Cottage Hospital and their commitment to new programs that are going to focus on the small percent of homeless people who use a large percent of the monies?
I don't quite understand what Cottage is doing based on those presentations, maybe I should read the
Would you like
Independent
your
more
esteemed
often.
colleague from Augusta, Georgia to...
It seems like a lot of money. I don't know what the impact is going to be, but I mean, Cottage is trying, everybody's trying around the edges
Well,
to
it's
do
the
what
right,
they can.
it's the right focusing on the, 15% who use 80%
Yeah, I
of
mean,
it.
so what Cottage is doing, I mean, yes,
Okay, we gotta wrap up.
They're getting a lot of money, but they're going to have a registered nurse go out with the city police when he makes his rounds with the homeless.
Is the nurse going to go out with Hap? Hap's a member of the police department now. He's
That I don't know.
He's out on the streets. Yeah.
How much
Next-
money is Ron Viscaro getting?
All right. Okay.
Insider joke.
I know.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Laura Capps, Tyler Hayden, Josh Molina, and Nick Welsh. Thank you for watching. Please visit our website, newsmakerswithjr.com, and our YouTube channel, should your insomnia become particularly pressing. Thanks again to our director, JP Montalvo, to our crew, Lizzie, Elliot, Ryan, Frankie, and as always, to our high-powered, top-ranking, high-powered, I already said high-energy, executive producer, Hap Freund. Thanks. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.